Hey, we're now live. It's your boy Tenzin, 130 the SOS podcast, and I'm here with a special guest, Jozef K Richards. He's a filmmaker and he's also part of the secular community. I had the pleasure of meeting him back in June for the Revival of Reason 2026. He was really great, man. He dressed up as a priest and he had us fooled. We were like, "Hey, you lost," but
Yeah.
but Joseph, please introduce yourself to the SOS family.
All right. I'm Joseph. I've been making films most of my life, been an atheist most of my life. And so the two kind of came together in my mid 20s. A close friend of mine got me involved with a group that introduced me to the idea of mythicism, that Jesus was perhaps a myth and not ever a real person, which I found very interesting. That got me to make a documentary with them. And that's how I ended up meeting a lot of these people that were at Revival of Reason, for example. And yeah, I kind of, things didn't go great with that movie as it finished. And then I was kind of out of the scene for a while. But I recently started a new YouTube channel last April. And so that was going really well. And that was why I came down to Atlanta, was to film some new interviews and get reconnected with you guys. But as it turns out, I just got permanently banned from YouTube the other day. So it's an interesting time to talk to me right now.
And I was just gonna touch on that too, because I remember, I wanted to prep myself for this interview, and I was like, God, where the fuck is this channel? Like, I'm literally typing in the title exactly, and nothing's coming up because I remember you recently had an interview with Dr. Richard Carrier,
Yep.
and I
Yep.
wanted to watch it,
Yeah.
but yeah, then I saw your Facebook status. I was like, no.
Yeah, it's brutal. That happened to me on Amazon too, and that was one of the reasons why I stepped away for a while, because it was really, it's just really, it really, I don't know how to describe it. It's just really sort of takes all the wind out of your sails when you spend all your time building something and put all your heart and soul into it and build this community, and then that these big tech companies can just sort of take it away, like literally in an instant.
So
Like
what
literally,
was
I
like
put up,
what was the accusation? Was it like copyright infringement? Like what was going on?
no, although I have to fight with that all the time, because even though I always have the rights to the music that I'm using. That's like the main thing that gets copyrighted on YouTube. But it's automated, so if any of my composers or people that license me their music have representation that scans for copyright infringement, they just automatically put a notice on your channel. So that does happen to some people, but in my case it was something that's harder to fight, even though I think it's totally incorrect. But they got me for sexual slash nude content. It was my show that I do that's called Holy Shit, where I dress as a priest,
Mhm.
and I basically break down like absurd things in the Bible. Um, so like the first episode was the top 10 commandments in the Bible, because if you actually read the Bible, there's way more than 10, and a lot of them are really
Right.
insane. So that was kind of what I started with, and I did like who kills the most people in the Bible? It's not Satan, it's God. What are like fantasy creatures? So this episode was the top 10 lewd sexual acts in the Bible, because there's
Mhm.
tons of weird sex in the Bible. So the episode is me explaining these weird scenes of sexual like weirdness in the Bible, lots of incest and rape and all sorts of weird things like that.
Of course.
And there's like comedy skits that include, like, Richard Carrier, for example, is in one of the skits. And so it's just silly. And I cut away to like some, like, you know, probably like Renaissance era art and sometimes the women's breasts are out. So they don't tell you exactly why. They just sort of hardline and say, nope, it has this. We checked it. You're out. And so I don't know what it was about that, because it was previously on a different channel on YouTube for 6 years. They gave it tens of thousands of impressions. It had thousands of views as well. I was just putting it on a different channel, and then it got my whole YouTube wiped, and they say that I'm permanently banned. And I tried to appeal it, because you can click like appeal. I immediately got one back that said nope. And then I was part of the YouTube partner program because the channel had enough subscribers to monetize. And so I tried using that, but I might as well have tried arguing with my wall, because they just, even though it is a person, which is more than I can say for like Facebook or Amazon,
Right.
taken off of those platforms. But really they're obviously copy and pasting a script that they have, and they have no way to change the decision whether they agree with what you're saying or not. So yeah, there's really nothing I can do unless somebody out there works for Google or YouTube and can advocate for me from the inside. From the outside, there's nothing I can do, and I'm just off of the platform now, and it sucks.
Wow. Yeah, it does. I mean, especially like because listen, I get it. People like to automate things to make things easier, but automation is not perfect, and it does need human eyes to go through it. I mean, especially if it's something as arbitrary as, what you said, it was like a piece of Renaissance art that had some nudity in it or something.
It could be something I was talking about. It could be like one of the little blurry thumbnails that pops up at some point. It could be, I mean, the Bible is pretty explicit, so it's like these are really, there are some really disturbing things. So like brothers taking advantage of sisters, and daughters taking advantage of fathers, and stepfathers and stepdaughters, and yeah, so it's all sorts of weird stuff that would be on a porn site. So I got basically treated as if I uploaded porn. And yeah, like they say that they do say that a human did go through it, but the episode is a half hour long and they did it in exactly a half hour, so it's kind of hard to believe that I deserve that much immediate attention, that somebody, as soon as I submitted it, they're like, boom, all right, I'm going to sit down and watch the whole thing. And so probably, and the other thing is, like, as we know, as being in this community, like, people are not always fair with us. So like,
right.
It could be that somebody, because I got so many, I've always gotten more positive than negative, which helps keep me going, because it's usually actually is more like probably 80-20 positive, but
Okay.
But you do get a lot of negative. 20 is still a lot, and so you get a lot of people that are just really angry, or they'll say, one time somebody made a blog about me and they said I was the
Really?
Antichrist, and they put like pictures of me with the priest thing. And so like there's really extreme people out there. So that's how my Amazon got taken down too. If they decide that they don't like it, they can, I don't know if anybody mass reported this because it was so quick. It was within a half hour of uploading it. But it's probably automated after that, whether or not, or it could have just been flagged because the title was taboo sex in the Bible. I just have no way of knowing. I can only guess. But yeah, it's like whatever human involvement there is, it's definitely minimal, and it's definitely mostly automatic, or it wouldn't be so quick.
And see, and that's also a sucky thing, because at the very least, you will want some sort of transparency as to why the channel you worked so hard on is just snapped away.
Yeah, you should be able to like talk to a human, and like a reasonable person would talk to me and see, oh, okay, like now, even though, yes, like we can see why you thought this was okay to upload, because it was on YouTube for 6 years, and it had and like at the very least a strike. I had no strikes on my channel whatsoever. It's just, so it was really shocking. I'm glad this interview is a few days later, because I was really upset.
Okay.
It's
man,
like think, like, because it's just gone, like, and you just want to get it back and you can't.
Right.
Not...
Well,
but
I know, like, the streamers
yeah,
I know streamers that I've watched, they said that, like the streamers I watch, they're left wing, they make left wing political content, so
yeah,
that's automatically a red flag. but
yeah.
but yeah, they say most of the time, if you got like a Twitter account, or X now, I don't know, you may have to harass YouTube through X and just be like, hey, what the fuck is going on? Like,
Yeah, That's always I always hate doing that because on X or Twitter, like it's completely public. So whatever like grievance you're making, or like personal thing you're sharing, like vulnerable thing you're sharing, everybody can see it. They can all save it forever. And so at me saying like, please YouTube reconsider, like all my patheticness is just on display for everybody to see. So it's hard. And then a lot of times they just ignore you, or it's also automated, because I've had that happen through X as well. At least on
Oh wow.
if X were to improve their like structure as far as putting videos and more long form content up, like if you could actually search for it instead of just
Hmm.
like they could probably do well, because I'll scroll through videos on there and I'll see all sorts of obscene things that I didn't want to see because so yeah, if you consider this porn, it should be fine on X. I actually just started a new Rumble page. That's the only platform I could find that I haven't been banned from now. So I will be with the same handle at Funny Thing About Religion. I will be re-uploading all of the Holy Shit episodes, all the interviews I did with Richard Carrier, Mandisa, David Fitzgerald, Aaron Ra, Robert Price, Killer Priest, Godless Engineer. All those will be going on my Rumble channel now, and my documentary Batman and Jesus. So if anybody out there wants to see all these now lost interviews and movies and shows, check that out on Rumble. I don't have anything live yet, but I did read on there that it's already monetized, so it's a lot better than YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, like YouTube made me like go through the gauntlet to get monetized. It took a long time, but
Yeah.
it took a few days. So I don't know. I know that the organic traffic's not nearly as good on Rumble. I can see from what the videos on the homepage are that it's definitely like a certain political leaning. It's not
Oh
as
yeah.
broad. So, I don't know how well I'll do on that site, but at least it's somewhere else I can go, because it's
Yeah.
like the type of content I make. It's really hard to put it on like Instagram or Facebook or X or sites like that, because it just gets swallowed up after 24 hours, and there's no like nice page where people can go and look through your library of videos.
Yeah, and well, and I was gonna say too. Well, at least with Rumble, I mean, hey, us left wingers, we need as much representation as possible
Yeah,
over
I
there.
did see like Breaking Points was on there, which I don't know if people consider that left, but I think it's pretty much, at least Crystal Ball is. So there's like
Yeah,
some people on there that are like liberal. But it was like, who do you want to follow? Donald Trump Jr. or Tucker Carlson?
right.
Oh, I think Tucker left the right anyway. Anyway, I don't pay attention to all that, but hey, there's diverse viewpoints everywhere you go. So check out Rumble. I gotta check it out myself. I don't know much about it
See
either.
now, see now you're gonna give me a reason to go on Rumble.
I know.
Do you have Twitch or anything like that? No.
No, I don't have Twitch, but because I always thought it was for streaming games, but I should look into it now because I'm.
Oh no, because I mean, now they may play a video game, but yeah, like a lot of the lefty streamers that I watch, like they still have like Twitch streams and stuff, but they just be on there just talking or reacting to videos. Like, so like you don't necessarily have to be playing the game all the time.
Yeah,
However, it would be a good good little visual to distract your audience while they listen to you talk.
yeah, that's true. I know, like at least from I've seen people re-upload on YouTube or something. Like they'll be talking about something and they'll just be like footage of a game they're playing that's going on. Whereas I'm like, what is this even? But all right, I'm listening.
Yeah, like which is amazing to me because I don't know, it depends on what I'm playing. Like if I'm playing Street Fighter or Tekken or something, I cannot
Right.
I you'll be hearing me go like, yeah, so the reason I became a motherfucker,
Yeah,
it's just like you would always hear me raging out.
you gotta be playing like a farm simulator or something.
Right, right. or like a very like linear story game, just something to relax you.
Yeah, exactly. But
So so now you mentioned earlier that you was an atheist pretty much your whole life, so you didn't necessarily have to go through the deconstruction phase that most American atheists had to go through.
well, I did, but I just did it when I was really young. So I have like maybe it's like kind of a unique story, but I did go to Catholic school. So when I was, I went to public school very briefly in kindergarten, but then I got accepted into a Catholic school, so I switched right away. So from kindergarten to through sixth grade, I was in Catholic school.
Okay.
And so um, I was I was very like I was very indoctrinated because I started when I was 5. So, and in Catholic school, you go to church. At least at ours, we went to church every Wednesday, and then you go on Sundays with your family. And so I was getting church twice a week for years, and then we would have like liturgy class, which is basically like singing church
Okay.
hymns and stuff. And so there was a lot in religion class. And so like it wasn't like the most hardcore Catholic school, but like it's just like Catholic education is hardcore whether you try or not. Like a lot of the
Yeah.
messages of the Bible are pretty hardcore if you don't like familiarize yourself with it and you don't really pay attention. And that's basically what happened with me. Was when I got to sixth grade, I was kind of feeling like I wanted to spread my wings a little more. There were not a lot of, I only had a class of like less than 30 kids. So the things I wanted to do with like writing and entertainment that I was interested in comedy, there just wasn't enough of an audience, I guess, at my little school. So I wanted to go to public school on my own. But so when I switched to public school in seventh grade, we were still going to church at that point. But so I didn't leave because of anybody in my family was not believing in that anymore. Not that we were like affirming our belief to each other, like, but like it was just sort of assumed, like most families, I think. But it was an incident with my younger sister who like got in a fight with another girl, and then her father like left a threatening message to my mom, and then the school just kind of swept it under the rug. If you know about the Catholic Church or most churches,
Yeah.
really
They
was.
can definitely sweep some stuff under that rug. Let me tell
No, yeah. So that really put my parents off, and so they stopped
you.
going to church. And my sister was really young, so she stopped going to church. But I was about 11 or so, and I had the fear of the devil in me. Like, I mean, they really impressed on me that if I did things wrong, I would go to hell. One of my comedy icons in the 90s was, I'm 37, by the way.
Okay.
One of my comedy icons was a fellow Wisconsinite, Chris Farley. And I would watch him on Saturday Night Live, and he would sometimes in the skits he'd say things like "Good Lord" or "Oh my God," and I would laugh, and then I would feel really guilty because they told me not to use the Lord's name in vain. And so I felt like I was sinning just by liking Chris Farley or Saturday Night Live. And so I felt very conflicted, and I would ask them about this a lot, and they would always just sort of, brush off my questions. And like Pokemon was big when I was that age. Well, I guess it still is, but it first came out when I was like 9.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would have to go to church and pray the rosary every week. And it's like what, 4 Hail Marys and then 1 Our Father and then 4 Hail Marys. I think that's how it goes. And so we would just be saying these prayers over and over and over. So my friend and I started saying Pokemon names in the prayer to entertain ourselves. And my teacher just, she puts us in front of the window during recess and makes us watch the other kids playing and tells us how we will go to hell for doing stuff like that. So we're just crying, like they would make you cry over doing something like that. So I was very afraid of like hell and the devil and doing anything against in fact, I almost failed a science class in 6th. Like I was so in between 2 like problems, which is that I was smart and gifted at like science. So they actually sent me to an academic competition to represent the school to compete in a science competition. I was out of my class. I think there was 1 boy and 1 girl that they sent. So, I was considered like gifted at these subjects, but I almost failed it because when we were learning about geology, I remember thinking, well, this contradicts what we're learning in religious class. So if I believe in this, I'm going to go to hell. So I better not like write down that the earth is this many years old because it can't be according to the Bible. Or
Well, hold on. That's interesting because I was always, well, I guess from the outside looking in, like, I always thought that at least the Catholics were a bit more accepting of, the sciences. You know what I mean? I thought it was more so. What's it? What's that sect that starts with a P?
Well, there's obviously like most of the evangelist ones, like the
like the evangelist or the what's that? Darn it! It's
I
gonna
don't
come to me.
know
But it's usually the more Protestants that are like,
no, you're
the
right
Earth
about
is 6,000 years old, and
You're right about that, but like the Catholics do technically teach you the same stuff. They just don't like really they don't like harp on it, I guess, in the same way. Like,
Okay.
they don't but like for me with my sponge of a brain, I was just like hyper focused on what they were telling me, and they're like, you're not supposed to be thinking about it that deeply. Like you just accept this class and you accept this other class, and for me it was contradictory. So at that point, when I left, when my family stopped going to church and I was no longer in school, I was still going to Sunday school, but I felt like I would go to hell if I didn't go to church. So I was riding my bike to church. And now that I was going on my own accord, I was actually paying attention more. And I started to like realize week after week, I was like, I've heard all these stories before, and I've heard them all a lot because and then I thought back to my liturgy class where they showed us like this circular calendar with all the like seasons of the Catholic Church or whatever, like Lent and Advent, and they all, and so they have their certain scripture that they'll read for this day of the year and that day of the year, and then they have their homily about what does this mean. And so I realized it's like, I've heard this, whatever. I was 11, so I had heard it, maybe not as a baby, but like, 10 times, let's say. Oh, I've heard this passage. And then I started asking in Sunday school, I'd be like, well, what about the devil and what about hell? Like, they're never really explaining that in church. Like, and they would, or what about the Holy Spirit? What does that even mean? And like, and then they like, my teacher would like call my mom and say, the K in my name is Kyle, which is what I mostly went by growing up. So they would say, Kyle is asking us all these great questions, but we don't know how to answer him, and it's upsetting the other kids. And so I was like, well, there has to be answers to these questions in this big Bible. There's all the rest of the Bible that they're not reading to us. Is surely this must talk about the devil and the Holy Spirit, and which it doesn't really, by the way. But so I started reading the Bible when I was, I think I would have been about 12 years old. It was when I was in 7th grade. And as many people will tell you, the best way to become an atheist is to read the Bible.
Read the Bible, yeah.
I'm surprised I even got as far as I did, but I did read the whole thing, but more so out of curiosity, because by the time I got to Noah's Ark, I was like, well, this isn't real. This is impossible. This is just like the Greek myths we're learning, or the fairy tale. It's like it's not not only is it not believable, but it's not even consistent within itself. And I remember like to me, one of the big things at that age was thinking about all the marine life and how we have, and I was just learning this in school at the time, so it was very fresh. Like we have salt water and we have fresh water. And so I'm thinking like, well, if the whole earth flooded, then the whole earth would have been salt water. And so all the freshwater fish would have died, unless Noah was putting them in tanks on this ark that was too small to even, and then you get into like, but if he was also like, what is he, like 900 years old, and he supposedly was getting 2 of every kind. Well, if let's say they were in like the general like area of whatever, like Middle East, Syria, whatever area, well, where was he getting tigers from? Where was he getting all these? And then kids who were also apparently like in their 70s or whatever, and he didn't have that many. They apparently went, and then even ignoring like the large animals, all of the insects, all of the different birds, they apparently got them all onto this tiny ark, which I've done the math on the dimensions, and any way you slice it, it's no bigger than like the base of the Eiffel Tower for a well-known reference point. Like that doesn't fit billions of animals. And then, but so if they weren't on the ark, then evolution has to be real, which they were also saying. And so you just end up like.
But Joseph, You're
Yeah,
forgetting
yeah.
God can do anything.
Right. That's exactly what they would normally say. Yeah, they would be like, yeah, it's and so or they would say like the devil like edited this to confuse us or to test
Like
us.
what?
Yeah,
And that's funny that you touched on that because you know it's interesting like the compartmentalization we had to like kind of teach ourselves to do.
yeah,
So like it's crazy. Like even though I became, I left religion in 2011. However, the journey starts way before you leave,
yeah,
whether you know it or not. But I remember being in middle school. It was one of my favorite units. Like in middle school lit, we were going over the Greek myths.
yeah,
So, and I remember my teacher, he prefaced before we started, he was like, listen, there's a lot of stuff they're gonna read that's not gonna make sense. And I know you're gonna have questions, but we're just gonna pretend that we're ancient Greeks and we're just gonna go with it. But yeah, like my classmates had all these questions just poking holes in these, Greek myths. And it's like, and it's funny because I think now it's just like, wow, we were so, and that's the thing that makes, kind of like Christianity, like the big three, such a huge deal. It's like, yeah, like no one expected you to believe in Greek mythology. So obviously you felt safe to
yeah,
poke holes in it where if you even thought to put logic into a biblical story, what the fuck is wrong with you? What are you possessed by the fucking devil, you piece of shit, you
yeah.
degenerate? Like, like you said, like you were upsetting the other kids. Like, why are they upset?
I
Shouldn't they welcome questions? So yeah, that's
because
interesting.
most people don't. Most people are more emotional than logical. So it takes. I think most people it takes a lot of time to like let that information settle. Because it's upsetting at first. Obviously, like you have this idea that you can go, like you're like, as long as I'm good, I'll get to see everybody I ever loved in this eternal kingdom of like everything good that I can imagine because it's never described
Mm-hmm.
specifically enough. You fill in your own blanks and so it's really that obviously bothered me like and it obviously it still does. I think it's everybody has a somewhat of a preoccupation with what happens when I die. Like that's why
Mm-hmm.
we invent all these things with religion and stuff because it's uncertainty that is uncomfortable and sad because you have love and it's like I mean it's one of the things I do like about the Bible, Ecclesiastes. There's a time for light and a time for dark. It's like you can't have love and joy in your life without there being the opposite,
Mm-hmm.
or you would have no reference to call it that. It's like
And that's the thing about the Bible that I've noticed too, like, or just with any religion, most of the good lessons you're taught from religion, I mean, you can kind of just learn just by living your life. You don't necessarily have to read the Bible. You don't have to read the Quran or like the Bhagavad Gita or anything to learn what you just explained.
right, exactly.
But but people be like, oh, see, those motherfuckers from the Bronze Age. I mean, how the fuck will they know that without God? Like it's like, well, I mean,
Yeah,
trial and error. Like,
rule is pretty simple, and you could tell that to anybody without religion, and most people would say that makes sense. I want people to treat me a certain way, so therefore I should treat them
right.
how I want to be treated. Like you don't need God for that. But yeah. So one of the other things you were saying was like, so once I was doing that was how was I received basically once I came to these conclusions? And yeah, it was not good.
And how old were you when you finally? I know you said you were very young, but yeah, how old were you when I guess you admitted to yourself that you didn't believe anymore?
I was about 12 years old. And I learned about the word agnostic, which was what I was using at the time because I thought people were going to be really upset if I told them I was an atheist, even though I
The
didn't really,
capital A.
yeah, even though I didn't really see the difference between the two words, or rather, I shouldn't say I didn't see the difference, but I should say I don't see how they are separate from each other.
They're not. Yeah, yeah.
If
I
you're
mean, technically, I'm an agnostic atheist. Yeah, so
if you're an atheist, you're saying I don't, I'm not a theist, basically. So if you're agnostic, you are an
right.
atheist.
Yeah, it's like I don't know.
But
This,
it is like,
it's the soft A.
yeah, exactly.
You know?
My first instinct was that, well, this can't be right, but maybe Judaism is the more pure version of this. So
Right.
my dad's best friend was very well read. He taught himself Arabic so he could read the Quran. He was very interested in all the religions, and so I remember calling him when I was around that age, like asking about these other religions, and it was much easier and quicker to accept that, oh, they're all kind of like this, like they're all, none of them really know what they're talking about.
Right.
And it was, I think it's Ricky Gervais who said, I only believe in one less God than you do. Like they're all agreeing that those are all wrong. We're just,
No, and it's crazy. Like, well, he's not really my friend anymore. I mean, but I still respect him. His name is Talib, formerly known as Tyrell. But yeah, like I remember, when he went from Christianity to Islam. And as much as I detest Abrahamic religion, I will say, I mean, at least for him, Islam did better his life. However, like he just got so deep into it. I remember he shared this video with me of this imam, like picking apart the Bible, which yeah, the imam was correct, of course, but it's just like, well, okay, how about you stretch your skepticism a little further?
yeah,
Okay, because yeah, I mean the Muslim version of events, they don't add up either. Like, so yeah, it's like I said, it's the compartmentalization. Like, it's okay, so you were 12 years old and you started off calling yourself the soft A agnostic. So who'd you tell first?
uh, I don't know exactly who I told first, but it was probably, I know I obviously would have told my parents, especially my dad, to have gotten me to talk to his friends. So I must have been talking to them about that openly. But I specifically remember um, she was my girlfriend on and off when I was younger, and I really liked her a lot. Um, and so this was devastating of how she reacted. But I thought I would tell her this new thing I figured out about the Bible and how Noah's Ark is impossible. And I started telling her about how Noah's Ark couldn't have happened because of this. And then she didn't talk to me for like 2 months. I mean, she was so upset.
Oh wow.
Because obviously it's like if you're to just like if you actually are forced to confront these things, it's hard to deny that it doesn't make sense.
Right.
You can't come back and be like, no, 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 no. Of course, Noah would have, like you're stuck. You're like, oh crap, he's right. I don't like that because now I'm forced to confront. And so I was too young and naive to understand that somebody would take it that way. And so I kind of got reactions like that. Fortunately, my family was much more understanding, despite the fact that they were the ones that got me into that whole religion. But I guess they were already sort of put off by it because for them it was more so that people were kind of like, act however you want during the week and then go get forgiven on Sunday and then rinse and repeat. So they just felt like it was kind of fake. So I think by that time they were sort of like loosely like, I believe generally in God or heaven or whatever, but I'm not really for any specific religion. I think a lot of people are like that. But yeah, that's kind of how their attitude was. And so they weren't really, and I don't know if I was like explicitly telling them I don't believe in God. I think it was, it's hard to remember because that was so long ago, but yeah, I know that I specifically remember telling that girl that, and her getting really upset and not talking to me, which was the last thing I wanted to happen. I wanted her to talk to me. So I was like, well, that didn't work out for me at all. And eventually she got over it though, but and so that was kind of what I've learned over the years. Is like, if you do tell people stuff like this, like you should like be prepared. They're going to not be happy with you, but
Mm-hmm.
probably it'll sink in over time. And in a few months, they'll probably be saying the same stuff you are. Because unless they're totally indoctrinated and like can't like, you know, some people are in a situation where they have to lose all their family and friends if they leave the church. If it's somebody like that, it might be, you know, but it's hard to be friends with people like that from the outside anyway, because they're not allowed to have friends that are
Right. Because,
so.
you know, well, see, it's like I envy you because it's like, dang, you know, like it took me 8 more years after 12 to, you know, to kind of come to the conclusion like, oh, okay, I don't believe in this. But, you know, but my journey was like, so similar to R and Raw, like I knew what dinosaurs were before I knew about Adam and Eve. So when my mom came to me talking about, well, she brought in these like children's Bible stories, and I
Yeah,
was reading through them. I was like, oh, this is very interesting. And
yeah.
my mom was like, yeah, that's real. I was like, really? Oh, okay. Well, my mom won't lie to me.
Right.
Shit. What? Well, you know what? So I guess myself, I guess I was like making up like little fan fiction director's cuts. Like, oh well, you see, actually, God made the dinosaurs first, but he shook the etch a sketch and started over and made Adam and Eve. And you know, oh shit, evolution. Well, clearly Adam and Eve were like, ape-like hominids or whatever first, and then and then they, I
Yeah,
was trying to fit reality into this like fallible, you know, into these fallible stories written by fallible men from ancient times.
yeah, exactly.
And it's like, I don't know. It's like I think I got to the point where, like most liberal Christians, I guess, like I think I got to the point where it's like, okay, you know what? Maybe all that other stuff was fake and parable or whatever, but damn it, Jesus was definitely born from a virgin. He definitely came back to life. I at least got to believe.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, that was kind of a different phase for me too, because I guess I kind of looked at it as like I sort of thought of Jesus as like Martin Luther King, I would say. I thought like if you actually read like what Martin Luther King wrote and listen to what he actually said, and then you look at how he gets used by the media nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't always line up. A lot of times they just cherry pick things he said for their own agenda. So that's
yeah.
what Jesus was probably a much more corrupted version of that because he's much more ancient. So I sort of thought, well, this guy probably said a lot of good things, peaceful things, love each other, forgive each other, do good, be charitable, like, and people then misconstrue it years later for their own selfish reasons, and so that was really what I thought, and because of the reactions I would get when I would talk about it, where people wouldn't want to talk to me, I sorry, there's a wasp on me. I had to. I kind of started keeping it to myself. So in my like later teens and into my 20s, I started just keeping it to myself. I even at one point when I was about 24, there was a different girl that I really liked, and she was very religious, and she was such a like nice, wholesome girl that I was thinking, I'll just pretend I'm Christian. What's the big difference? Like, it's fine. I have a lot of the same values. Like, I also believe in honesty and not killing people and respecting your family, and so I felt like I'll just do that. And it happened to coincide with so I mentioned that my dad's friend was somebody that I talked to about this when I was younger. He was also a big supporter of my filmmaking career, which I started making short films and shows when I was around the same age of 12.
Okay.
Writing scripts before.
Yeah, you're like Brendan Small.
Yeah, I really was. I was even as like in kindergarten, I was writing like plays.
I'm glad you got that reference. You're a man of culture.
Yeah, my mom would say like, "Well, why do you think these kids from school want to come over and do a play. Like they'll probably just want to have fun and not read a script. And I was like, ah. But then I eventually got a video camera, so then I eventually did get my friends to come and do that stuff with me, and I made a lot of stuff throughout uh, junior high and high school. And he was one of the first adults to take me seriously and read my scripts and give me like actual feedback and not be like, oh, that's a silly kid thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he was in all of my movies in little parts, and he ended up passing away
Oh.
right after I finished my first feature film when I was about 20.
Oh
So,
man.
yeah, he died right after our rap party. He put up a toast to me and said, I think he was in 6 or 7 at that time. He said 6 and counting, and he was dead a few days later. So
What was if you don't mind me asking, what's his name?
Russ Montney.
Russ Montney?
Yeah.
Peace be upon him.
Thank you. And yeah, he was a great guy, and it was very sad for my dad and for his whole family. He was, he was a poor house. He was a big guy. He sang Fiddler on the Roof, Tevye, If I Were a Rich Man at my mom's 40th birthday, and he looked the part. Like he looked like Tevye from Fiddler on the Roof, a big guy with a big beard, big gray beard. And he would bring over a 2-liter to our house to drink himself of soda. So he didn't have the
Oh, okay.
he was kind of, he was larger than life. And when you're larger than life, you don't always last that long. But so that was really sad and hard to accept. But so when I was about 24, so whatever, 5 years later, so his son, Adam, who I also knew since I was a child, Adam Montney, he got in touch with me and said, hey, there's this group in Milwaukee called Mythicist Milwaukee. And the movie Zeitgeist had come out recently, maybe not that recently, but I had seen it, and it was like a big pop culture thing. That was one of the big hits on YouTube back in the day when YouTube was very fresh.
Right.
And that had a flawed, but overall, like,
Yeah, because that actually what that well, at least the religious part of the film, that's what drove me to questioning. But now, luckily, like you said, that film is heavily flawed. I always preface it by saying that film is heavily flawed, because luckily I knew enough about Christianity to know, like, okay, clearly Jesus wasn't born December 25th.
Sure.
But but the concept of there being other godmen, because that was the main selling point I used to hear. Oh, well, no other religion has a figure like Jesus.
Yeah,
like, damn, you're right. But all of a sudden, oh my God, you were fucking wrong.
Yeah, sure
so
exactly.
It made me just go down this rabbit hole, and I'm like, okay, I was scared, all right? Because, like, what the fuck? If there's no God, then what the hell am I gonna do?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, at least the religious people are moral. At least religion is moral. Then I finally read the parts of the Bible they didn't tell me about, which even some of the parts they did tell me about was fucked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the slavery shit,
Yes. Oh my God.
And I remember, like, one of the most, sorry for the tangent, but I remember one of the most and I usually hear this from like gay Christians. They usually say, "Oh, well, the Bible isn't against homosexuality; it's against pederasty." So, okay, so God's against pederasty, but He's okay with you taking like young girls from villages that you just conquered, by the way. And by young girls, obviously they're going to be little girls because adulthood was way different back then.
Mm-hmm.
So he don't like pederasty, but molesting little girls is okay. Okay.
Yeah. And it details how you can do this, how you should do this. It gives you very lengthy instructions on how to sell your daughter, and if this or that happens, how do you change, and what do you do with your slaves? And at no point does it say you shouldn't have slaves.
And that drives me up the wall. Like, I love my Christian friends, I do, but it's like it's always the same excuse. Like, oh, well, humans were fucking stupid back then, so God had to like handhold them through slavery. But it's like He expected them to not be gay and have premarital
Because
sex.
it
So
does. If you do read it, there is nothing that says it's okay to be gay. It does say that you're not supposed, at least for men. It doesn't always include women, but it certainly does say that you shall not lie with another man.
he expected them to understand that mixing fabrics is wrong. So
Exactly.
he couldn't bother to say don't own other people. Like, like that's
Yeah, I know. Exactly. That was what I top 10 commandments was. I went into some. So yeah, it's pretty bad. But going back to like that turning point with Jesus was,
Mhm.
so my friend Adam Montney, the son of Russ, he was like, and I heard the term mythicist, and I was like, this sounds like some hippie nonsense. Like, I don't want to
Yeah.
movie about that. What are you talking about? And I want to, I want to make genre movies and stuff, which I still do. But they were like, well, we can get a budget. At least come to a meeting and listen to this video. He sent me this one video, and it was Richard Carrier, David Fitzgerald, and Robert Price, like on a panel for like an hour talking about how Jesus may not have been a real person. And so just like you, even after watching Zeitgeist, I felt like, okay, the first step was, okay, like I said, Martin Luther King, something like that. Then you find out, oh, there's a ton of other gods and sons of gods or whatever that have very, very similar stories. So, okay, most of the story must be invented, but there was probably a guy. You whittle it down to where, even atheists think, well, there was probably a guy. But I listen to them describe the evidence, rather the lack of evidence, and I'm like, well, we don't even know if there was a guy.
There could
And
have
it
been a
never
bunch of
even
guys, right? Like
occurred to me that there wasn't a guy, because it's just everywhere you go. Every history book you read, everything you find about Jesus says he was a person in whatever at this time. And then you look into it further and you're like, well, where are they getting this from? The Bible? That's where you're getting it from the Gospels and the epistles? That's what you're basing on him being a real person from? And so it's like, there's no way to say, oh, there definitely was never a guy named Jesus at this time.
right.
But there's just no way to say that there was either. So that I found to be very interesting. And the fact that they were going to be able to get a budget, and there was this whole like community of people that were going to help me make it, because I was really whittling down on people willing to help me for no money at that point. That was going to be my third movie. And so I'd already done 2 movies that didn't make any money, that nobody got paid on. And we were like college age at the time. Well, now people are starting to have careers, and it's not all right, I'll go spend 30 days, or whatever, shorter, less or more than whatever, how long it takes to make a specific project. But yeah, so that was all like, and this is interesting. And I think maybe I'm the right person to make a movie about this because of my own ego. No, because of my background and how I like grew up with this and see both sides of the fence, and how I evolved to, that's so, and also just my sense of humor and comedy. I felt like, I had watched the movie Religulous by Bill Maher, which had come out recently at that time as well. I think that probably came out in like 2009 or 2010. I think 2010.
Okay.
And I remember seeing that movie, which is about, essentially, it's a comedy documentary about how ridiculous a lot of what religious claims are, but it ends in such a grim way with like they literally show the footage of the atomic bomb, and he's impressing like, this is bad, we need to move on from this, and it leaves you with a very low feeling. And so my goal was to make something that yeah, this is not the news you want to hear necessarily, but let's end it with what is okay about it. Like, it's okay. That's kind of how I wanted to end this movie. And so I wanted to use comedy and mix in people's real experiences. And so I came up with the idea of Batman and Jesus to basically say, like, we don't know who Jesus is in the same way that we wouldn't know who a Batman is, because all of this source material is contradictory. And every generation just makes up their own Batman. Like, now Batman is dark and grim, and now he's campy and silly, and now he's cool and flashy, and now he's part of this DC universe, and now it's always changing with the times. And Jesus is the same way. The way that my parents would have been taught about Jesus in the 60s and 70s was a lot more flower power and peace and stuff than what I was getting in the 90s, and I'm sure that's what they're getting today and what they would have been getting in the 40s or the 1800s, or,
Mhm.
going back to 180 or whatever. So that was kind of the idea behind it, was to show like and also just discovering that there are a lot of gospels and epistles that aren't in the Bible, and why aren't they in the Bible, and why are the ones that are, and who decided that. And so I had a group like Canonizing Batman to show like, look at all these arbitrary reasons they're using, because you can't, because it's not a real person. So you can't be like, well, no, this is what actually happened. There is no way to do that. So it's all just, well, I like this book, I like this one, I like the message of Jesus in this one. And that's the Bible we have. Because if you read even just the Gospels, they contradict each other. It's not the same story in all.
Right. And that's a really good point, because like I forgot who originated this quote, but yeah, like a lot of people say like a Christian from 1890 is not going to recognize Christianity today, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Um, and going back to you, deconstructing at such a young age and discovering that, not a lot of people like to get into discussions like this. I wish, and it's funny. Are you familiar with Jimmy Snow?
I'm not sure.
Okay, he's a yeah, he's another atheist YouTuber. I remember he appears, he's on the line with Matt Dillahunty and stuff now. But
Oh, okay.
I remember this one piece of it. He said like, the one piece of advice I'll give to, people who just became an atheist yesterday, hey look, for the first 2 years, just shut the fuck up, man. Like, just, you know, find other ways to get the anger out and stuff. But, obviously he said it's not a realistic, advice to give. But yeah, I mean, I wish I personally would have known it, because I was one of those weirdos who actually like to talk about religion with people. I was like,
Yeah.
hey, can you explain this?
Yeah.
Now granted, I didn't have the best bedside manner when it came to the discussion, but that was just because, well, I know what my morals are. So yeah, Yahweh's a monster.
Yeah.
Like, this is evil. Yeah, this is dumb. Like, what, like, why do you believe that? But yeah, like, people, I mean, even though it doesn't make sense, but people do take criticism of their religion as you criticizing them,
Yeah.
which
Exactly.
to me, that was a different thing for me growing up, because back when I was a believer, like, I unironically believed that I believed in the most powerful motherfucker in the universe. So when I heard Bill Maher or South Park make God jokes, that did not affect me. I thought it was funny. I'd just be like, oh, kind of like how you said with Chris Farley. I'm like, hey, God, you know, come on, you know that was funny, man. Come on, you
Yeah.
know.
That's kind of how I even like, because some people say like, a lot of people like to use the argument of like, well, what if you're wrong? If I'm wrong, nothing happens. But if I'm right, I'm going to heaven, and and it's like, I honestly, like, I think if there is such a God, I think he's a little more reasonable than,
Yeah, I would hope. I mean,
like, I think he could see love in my heart and see good
yeah.
and see good deeds and say like, well, just because you weren't out there professing how real I am, doesn't mean you're a bad person, like. So a lot of people, it's the reverse. They just think, as long as I profess my love for Jesus, it doesn't matter what I do, which is in a way what a lot of religion teaches you. So
Yeah, and it's crazy because, like, kind of like what I said at the Revival of Reason. I was just like, look, man, if the universe is ran by that psychopath that's in that book, yeah, we're fucked. Like, we are, most of us are. Like, even who you would see as a good example of a Christian, they probably might go to hell just because they fuck something up, you know.
Like getting banned on YouTube. There's gonna
Yeah.
be
You know, you didn't like that post which equaled one prayer. You fuck. Like,
you thought that was bullshit, but no, that was part of your. It really was. That was not chainmail.
Oh man, so Joseph, thank you for this
Yeah,
wonderful conversation, man.
absolutely. Yeah,
It's always good to talk to like-minded individuals like yourself. It was a pleasure meeting you at the Revival of Reason. I hope to see you a lot more.
yeah,
Um,
I can get back on my feet. And I was expecting to come on and be like, "Look how great this funny thing about religion is going," and instead it's like, "Please help me get out of the embers of YouTube." But hey, it's good. It makes me feel good that it's not actually all gone.
right.
Online shit is online, and real life is still real life.
And uh, just and before you go, please tell the audience of any social medias that you still have and where they can find and stream your films.
Yeah, if you want to find, well, if you want to find me, my name down here at Jozef K Richards on most platforms. You can find me at Jozef K Richards. If you want to see my films, the best place that is under my control is my official website, which is Kintou Media, KINTOU media.com. That has links to everything. But yeah, like I said, the new channel is on Rumble. It's at Funny Thing About Religion. If you're watching this and you go there right now, you might be the first follower because I have 0 followers right now. It's brand new. So yeah, that's
Oh,
going to be, if you're
I'm
interested
sorry,
in,
Joseph.
yeah.
I'm sorry, Joseph. Real quick, say your website again. I'm typing it in the description.
Okay, it's Kintou Media, KINTOU media.com. And there you can find all sorts of stuff that I've done, from horror movies to children's books to political comedy and all sorts of stuff. I walked across Japan when I was 30 and documented that. So all sorts of stuff. But if you're interested in the religious type of stuff, if you want to hear long form interviews where I just let them talk with like Richard Carrier and Aaron Ra and people like that, that's at Funny Thing About Religion, banned on YouTube, banned on Amazon, but we're still out here at Rumble now. And if it comes down to it, I might have to try to put some the episode about sex. I might not put up because I'm worried about getting totally banned from the whole internet.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, well, you know what? Never mind, because that's the same situation with YouTube. You know,
Yeah,
you got these shit kickers out here sig
yeah.
heiling and saying the hard R's, but they're still alive. So who knows? I mean, Rumble might be just as contradictory. I was just about to say, wait a minute, like Rumble's full of like Nazis and Klansmen. But
I've read their terms of service as well, and technically they have the same type of language in there. So,
okay.
but maybe I'll do like maybe in the future, if enough people are supporting me, maybe I'll do like a thing where you can access the videos that I can't put on the public platforms, and I can
So
links or
well,
something.
Joseph, have you also looked into like maybe starting a Patreon or a Nebula channel?
Yeah,
I heard people been moving on to Nebula too.
actually, I got to look into Nebula. I haven't done that, but Patreon, I do actually have one. I don't remember. It's probably at Jozef K Richards.
Okay.
If you follow me on Instagram or X or Facebook, and you just and then or go to my website, then you'll find all the branches to these other things. It gets disjointed when they kick you off of stuff. So but yeah, no, yeah, Patreon is something that I should do more of. So I think it's either, I don't know, or maybe it's at Kintou Media. It's one of the two.
Okay. Well, hey, Joseph, thanks for coming on to the SOS podcast. I really
Yep.
appreciate you coming. Definitely come on back. You know, don't be surprised if you get more emails from me.
Okay. Yeah.
And until then, I bid you adieu and thanks.
Thank you. Great talking to you, and have a good one.
Likewise.